Hello. Another episode of the podcast. Let me do a little snap into the mic so we can sync up the audio. I will apologize. In my last podcast, I think the audio did not sync up very well with the video. If you watched on YouTube, that happens sometimes if you're not very professional, which I'm not. Sorry. I wanted to make this more of a casual episode because I wanted to talk about award season a little bit. Award season being the time of the year in late winter where we award movies and TV and music of the previous year, all the big awards, such as the Academy Award, the Oscars, if you will, the Golden Globes, the Grammys. Those are the only three that I care about. So that's what I'll be covering today. It has been a rough month for me. You wouldn't know by my upload schedule for this podcast. I think I've gotten into a pocket of uploading that makes sense. But, my grandpa died, and that was very sad. I don't want to talk about it very much, but just know, February was not my favorite month in the world. So it has been nice having the podcast, to have something else to focus on besides, how sad I am. So maybe at some point I'll make more of an episode about that, because I've kind of been thinking about grief a lot for obvious reasons. And I would really like to explore it a bit more in this format. I just don't think I'm ready to at this particular time. So I would rather focus on stuff that makes me happier, or maybe even a little bit angry in like a healthy way. And I think award season is very timely because the day this is going up is actually the day of the Oscars. So you can check my predictions and see if I'm right. And I just, it's a much more fun topic than grief. So that'll be in the pipeline, I guess, but not today. Not today. I'm trying to think if anything else has happened in the last month. Charlie released Von Dutch. Great single. Very excited about Brat. If you've been listening to this podcast for the last 6 episodes, you'll know. Big Charlie XCX fan. So that's been great. I did try to get tickets to the Boiler Room show, and it didn't happen for me. And there's no way I could have gotten to New York in time anyway. But I tried, and that's what matters. Anyway, award season. I love a little recap. And I like that award season gives us a chance to recap the previous year. And I have a lot of feelings about how last year was for movies and music specifically. Mostly that I think movies last year were very good, and I think that music last year was not very good. I think that movies specifically finally had a bit of a good year. I do think that during the pandemic, things got a little bit dire, and there was a rough patch where basically because nothing was made during the pandemic, a lot of stuff was coming out that was thrown together really quickly, after lockdowns, or, we just had a dry spell in general because you had a period of time where nothing was getting made. So then there was a period the following year where it felt like nothing was coming out. And we're finally hitting a point now where things are coming out very regularly, and they're starting to get good. In a way that almost feels like we're headed toward another 2017. And when I say another 2017, I mean another year for film that feels like a turning point in the way that we consume movies, and the kinds of stories that are being told, which I think is a good thing. I don't think we can be stagnant for too long. And I do want to shout out 2017 specifically was really, really good. That was the year, I have it all listed out. This is what was nominated for the Academy Awards all in one year, and I think this is crazy. Call Me By Your Name, Phantom Thread, Lady Bird, Killing of a Sacred Deer, Good Time. Well, Good Time wasn't nominated, but it came out. Get Out also came out that year. That is crazy. And all of those people are people that are still making things that are getting nominated this year, or just generally are putting out really good work. So I think that was our last big shift year. And I think that's fairly self-explanatory. Like, you can understand when I say that the year that Get Out and, like, Good Time came out, did something to us. Like, if you've seen those movies, you know, like, it shifted cinema. But there was a run of years after that where things got really bad. Like, 2018 to 2022... I feel like there's not that many movies that I can point to where I'm like, yes, that was great. Like, these are years where, like, Marvel movies were regularly up for Best Picture. Like, it felt like that was all that was coming out for a second, even though, like, I know that's not true. And, like, I know I saw a lot of other stuff and there was good stuff coming out. It just felt like the film landscape for popular cinema, and not even popular cinema, like, was very stacked toward blockbusters, minus that, like, one good moment we had with, like, Parasite, you know? That was, like, the same year Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out as well. I went to Cannes that year, not the Flex. Sorry. So I did think 2019 was pretty decent, and it was fun to see, like, an international film get recognized in that way. But yeah, generally things like that don't really happen. And since the pandemic, things have been obviously, like, extra dry. And, you know, I kind of, like, I hate to give it to A24 for anything, because it's, like, also a corporation. Like, people don't realize that A24 is, like, still very corporate. Like, yes, they release, like, mid-level movies and a lot of indie movies. Indie, you know, it's not a big studio, technically. It's actually not a studio at all. They buy things, is what A24 does. Which is why it's very frustrating when people are like, oh yeah, A24 has a look. And it's like, they actually, like, for the most part, don't. Yes, they, like, buy stuff before it gets made sometimes, and they fund it. But sometimes they also don't. Sometimes they buy stuff that's already been made. So yes, they have a general vibe that they go for, I think, in the projects that they pursue. But they're not a studio. They don't... people are not making things on an A24 lot. Like, it's not the same thing as being like, yeah, an MGM movie from, like, the 1940s looks a lot different from, like... MGM did musicals. And there was another studio that did, like, horror movies. Universal. Okay, so it's, like, comparing, like, MGM and Universal, right? Like, those were things that were made on a lot. And you can genuinely say, like, there's an MGM style and there's, like, a Universal style. You can't really say that about A24 or, like, its contemporaries, like Neon, you know, or Annapurna, because they're just indie movies. That's just what it is. But anyway, I hate to give it to A24 for anything, but they did pump out a lot of really good indie movies just over the past decade, to be fair, you know, and it's better than supporting Apple TV Plus. It's better than supporting Amazon Studios. I do think Neon is also great, as I said, and Annapurna does a lot of great stuff as well. So give some love to those two studios too, because, like, Neon released Parasite, Annapurna did, like, Booksmart and Phantom Thread. So that's just off the top of my head. So I'm sure there's a lot more that those studios have put out, and it's great work. So yeah, there are some studios doing good things, and I think we're finally starting to see, like, a mainstreamization of that, I guess. So I guess what I'm getting with that is it feels like this year's Oscar lineup is actually pretty solid. Like, generally, I think, you know, you can place Oscars movies, Academy Award winning movies, in, like, 3 categories, as you can do with any movie, which is, like, you know, the very good category, great movies, the excruciating category, where it makes you upset that it's been nominated, and then stuff you've just never heard of and that nobody's ever heard of, and it's probably very bland. And in this year's Best Picture category, in my personal, humble opinion, at least 6 or 7 of them are very good. And that is, like, the past couple years, that has not been happening. There are, however, 3 movies that I would consider to be excruciating, but that's fine. I have a little note here that says, for reference, last year's lineup only had 3 movies I would consider to be very good. I can't tell you off the top of my head which ones those are. I also said last year's excruciating category was pushing 5 entries, so I guess I was feeling really critical. And this year only has 2 excruciating movies, which I do know off the top of my head are Maestro and something else. probably Barbie. I'm sorry. So this year's nominations are American Fiction, which I would personally place in the unheard of category. Anatomy of a Fall, very good. Barbie, excruciating. The Holdovers, very good. Killers of the Flower Moon, very good. Maestro, excruciating. Oppenheimer, very good. Past Lives, I've heard mixed things. I'm not going to say it's unheard of, but it's definitely also not going to win. Poor Things, very, very good. Zone of Interest, also very good. This is a very strong selection of movies. Compared to last year, which I'm going to pull up, and you're going to be like, wow, we as a society have we've done it. Something has shifted in cinema. Why is it so hard to just go on Wikipedia and find the nominations from last year? Dear God, I hated so many of these movies. Okay, Everything Everywhere All at Once, I'm sorry, didn't do it for me. All Quiet on the Western Front, I thought was quite boring. Avatar: The Way of Water, I just have no interest in. Banshees of Inisherin, very good movie. Elvis, fun, fine. I don't know why it's here. The Fabelmans, I heard was very good. I did not see it, but I'll take your word for it. Tar, amazing movie. That one was good. Top Gun Maverick, I don't think that belongs there. I simply do not think that belongs there. Triangle of Sadness, I thought was kind of mid. Women Talking, I'm the only woman you should hear talking. Anyway, also, why is The Whale, anywhere near any of this? That movie was god-awful. Okay, anyway, last year sucked, so let's just focus on how good this year was. I'm gonna be really critical today. Anyway, and it's also, not like the Oscars are, the end-all, be-all, and, what cinema is, and, what is really important to the development of the art. You know what I mean? And I don't think anything really is. Cannes isn't, Berlinale is not, definitely not the Golden Globes. Nothing can be a definitive source of, what is good. But I do think the Oscars try. Not that those other, ways of awarding people things don't try. I think Cannes tries very hard, specifically. Where am I going with this? Oh, yeah. In America, we have so few outlets for celebrating and supporting the arts. And if the Oscars are going to be one of those things, I guess we might as well support that. I think it's a nice gesture. And I think that it's one of those things that you can really track, where, the culture is at. And I've always found that of interest, especially the past few years. You can tell what people want to use art as a vehicle for. I think we've had a slew of movies here where Best Picture goes to stuff that is about politics or is about different minority groups, and I think we're also sort of coming out of a moment, but one that was very strong for many years, where the purpose, quote unquote, of art for many people was to bolster those ideas and get people's voices out there. Not that I think we're necessarily leaving that idea behind, but this year's nominations are definitely more, but it feels a lot more subtle, and it feels much more, I guess the theme this year is big movies that aren't necessarily blockbusters, which is sort of interesting. Because last year was definitely blockbuster heavy. Because aside from Barbie and Oppenheimer is sort of not your traditional blockbuster. It's just interesting because, even historically you can track after World War II, a lot of the movies that were winning were a processing war and stuff. And the Oscars are kind of cool. They're kind of cool from a historical standpoint. And I stand by that. And, they also have this tendency to swing back and forth, as I was kind of saying, between wanting to be political and not wanting to be political, and it feels like this year is sort of a non-political year. But I could be wrong. It hasn't happened yet, so I don't know. But you do always have those years where, Shakespeare in Love wins Best Picture, you know what I mean? And that's allowed. That's simply, if people wanted to make a statement about, we just want to see fun movies, I think that is also allowed. The late 90s were just a really silly, goofy time. And I think, if we're going that route, Barbie could stand a good chance, because, yes, it has, a little bit of political satire in it. I don't think it's very effective political satire, but it's there. It's also a fun movie. So, if that's how we're feeling, maybe. But I think it's also more likely going to go to Oppenheimer or Killers of the Flower Moon or Poor Things, perhaps. Anyway, before we get into the Oscars, though, because I kind of want to save that for last. I know I already did a little bit of a dive, but we're coming back to it. I do want to look at the Golden Globes and the Grammys because they've already happened, and they can kind of give us a little bit of insight into predicting how tonight's going to go. And I also think I'm right about my predictions, but we'll get there. I will also preface this by saying the Golden Globes and the Grammys are not award shows I particularly care about all that much, because here's the thing. I tend to agree with what the Golden Globes go to. Like, it's a very suited to my taste award show, but I just find the format of it, like, too casual. And, like, if we're gonna see an award show, like, I want to see some, like, zhush. And that's just not there. It doesn't intrigue me. I don't like to watch it, but I'll catch up after. And then the Grammys, I think, are an affront to music. But I watch it anyway. For some fucked up reason. Going back in time for a second, the Golden Globes. Did they do a good job? What were their picks? The Golden Globes, if you're not aware, cover both film and television. So the ceremony has a really broad collection of people in it. It has that format where they're all sitting at round tables, dinner tables. They do actually eat dinner during the award show, which is how you get situations like that one, like Selena Gomez, Taylor Swift clip that went viral where they're like gossiping to each other. Or this year, Robert De Niro was sitting next to Oprah and having, like, there was a conversation he had with that one teacher from Abbott Elementary, Cheryl Lee Ralph. I can't remember what her character's name is, but anyway, I just think that makes things a little bit more fun in a way, like a messy way, which is a pro for the Golden Globes, but yeah, it's a little too casual for me. I'm sure it's a better vibe to be there in person, which is good. Power to that. Top awards of the night at the Golden Globes went to Oppenheimer so they have two Best Picture categories at the Globes. They have Best Drama and Best Comedy/Musical. And that is divided in a way that I think makes total sense. Musical is from a bit of a bygone era, but it's still there in case you need to use it. Because, like, there was La La Land, there was West Side Story the other year. It does happen, and they get placed with the comedies. For some reason, I think it does make sense. It's like a vibe thing that it makes sense. It's not like 100% logical, but whatever. So the top of the awards tonight for Best Picture Drama was Oppenheimer, and Best Picture Comedy/Musical was Poor Things. Historically, you can use this as a predictor for the Oscars. Not always. This is not like a foolproof thing. But this year, I actually do think there's some truth to that theory. Because I think those two films, along with Killers of the Flower Moon, are the films that have the best chance of winning Best Picture at the Oscars. And I have no qualms with those choices. I think Killers of the Flower Moon is a better film than Oppenheimer. And I've heard great things about Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest. I'm taking it at face value that they're good films because people have told me that I trust that they're great films. And I will watch them, do not worry. But Oppenheimer is a respectable pick. I'm tired of biopics being the default picks at award shows. And this, like, doesn't really break that. But it's also not like J. Robert Oppenheimer is a big household name anymore. Like, it's not like Bohemian Rhapsody where, like, everybody knows who Freddie Mercury is, or, like, what is that? My Day with Marilyn? My Night with Marilyn? I can't remember, but the one that Michelle Williams won her awards for, like Marilyn Monroe, it's like we all know who that is. I think part of the appeal of watching those films is watching them, like, get into it. And I don't think that's the appeal necessarily of Oppenheimer. So I'm going to give it a pass. And it's a much better movie than either of those two movies, so, like, it's fine. And, this year we did have Maestro try it and fail it, so, like, maybe we're moving away from biopics. I don't know. And I love Poor Things. I've said this before. I understand there's, like, Holdovers, the movie The Holdovers shooters out there. That's, like, great. I'm happy for them. I'm sure it's a great movie. I do plan on watching it. But I think Poor Things is very inventive and fun and smart and just has a lot to say. I think it's a good movie. I would like to see more movies swing that hard, you know, like for the fences, in terms of like being a little wild and silly. So I'm happy to see it get at least one big award, even if it doesn't get Best Picture, although that would be very cool. Emma Stone and Cillian Murphy also took home their respective Best Actor, Best Actress awards for their genres. It doesn't always happen to be the case that like the Best Actor and Best Actress also belong to the films that win Best Picture, but I think this year it does make a lot of sense. Those are both films that are like bolstered by those performances and wouldn't work without those performances. So I think those are totally deserved. Paul Giamatti and Lily Gladstone were their foils, you know, in genre and gender. And they're also nominated for Actor and Actress Awards at the Oscars. So at least, you know, I think historically, the Oscars will probably come down to those 4 actors as well for Best Actor and Best Actress. At the Oscars, it's probably going to Cillian Murphy. I think either of the 2 ladies could win it, though. For TV, I just want to cover this because I think it's fun. I used to major in television in college, my freshman year, and I think it's really wild that I just like don't really care about TV that much anymore. Because I really thought I was going to be making TV. Anyway, Succession and The Bear took home Best Shows for their genres, which I think once again is like totally earned this time. I do think, and this is coming from like Roman Roy Defender #1, so like don't come after me. I do think it should be Jeremy Strong getting the Best Actor in a Drama award here, but that's just not what happened. And I have to be okay with that. But it makes me sad that he wasn't at the Globes, because I get a vibe that it's like sad for him, because I think he put a lot into that role. And it's not that Kieran Culkin didn't. I think Mr. Culkin is a great actor, and I think he was perfect for Roman. But I wanted to see Jeremy Strong get something, and he didn't. Anyway, The Bear, I also do totally understand. I have some problems with The Bear, not because I think it's a bad show, but because I think it doesn't fully live up to its potential. Like, I don't think it's always, like, the best written show. I think it swings for a lot of easy, like, people are going to talk about this on Twitter things, so they bring in, like, you know, like John Mulaney and Jamie Lee Curtis, and they talk about Taylor Swift on the show, and it's like, we just don't need all of this. This is, like, not the most interesting thing. I just find it, like, very overdone sometimes, I guess, but I think that Jeremy Allen White and Io Adebri, I think I just found out is how that is pronounced, are both really good. So I'm glad that they also won their acting awards. But yeah, overall for TV, I think all of that really checks out. Strong argument for Barry over The Bear, but I also understand that that's probably not going to be the kind of thing that appeals as much, so I'm not going to complain about it. Beef got Best Limited Series, which I guess I'm arguably okay with. I didn't finish it, but I thought it was fine. Not enough to finish, I guess. But I've also heard Fargo this year was pretty good, so I don't know. Haven't finished either of them, so couldn't tell you. The only real complaint I have with the Golden Globes this year is that I'm very against the new inclusion of the award for cinematic and box office achievement. I just don't think we need that. Like, Barbie got it, and it already picked up another award anyway for Best Original Song for the Billie Eilish song. So I think we awarded it where it needed to be awarded, and we can just leave it at that. Like, this is like a new award. Like, this is the first year we've ever done this. And there's this push lately to, like, create space at award shows for, like, big blockbuster movies, like last year at the Oscars. And they're already, like, taking up all of the space. Like, all the air in the room is already being taken up by blockbusters in real life. Like, if you talk to your coworkers about what movies they've seen Top Gun, they've seen Avatar, they've seen the Marvel movies, they've seen Barbie. And, like, they don't go see everything else, usually, unless the Oscars tell them to. And it's like, I just think we just don't need it there. Like, and also Marvel films don't really belong on the same stage as, like, an Oppenheimer or a Zone of Interest. Like, those are completely different films with, like, completely different goals. And, like, I'm sorry, but, like, a completely different level of artistry. You know what I mean? So, and I mean, outside of special effects. Award Marvel movies for special effects. I think that's great. They did a very good job with that. They tried hard. This is, I don't know, primarily my own opinion, my own theory. But I think award shows have had a continual decline in viewership, and I think that they see awarding blockbusters as a way to get back that viewership. it's very frustrating that viewership is tied to the existence of the award show, because the award show should not necessarily be catering to people that are not in film or TV. This is an overarching complaint for this year, but it annoys me that Barbie's here at all, and like, this is no hate to Greta, it's no hate to Noah Baumbach. I love both of them. I think Greta has made a lot of films that resonate strongly with me. Frankly, so is Noah. I think they're both really great at what they do, but I think artistically, this was a career low for them, and that's fine. They both obviously both wanted to make it. I think it meant a lot to Greta, and they're obviously going to get a lot more deals off of this. And if Greta does want to become a blockbuster director, I guess she can do that. I think that's a little bit disappointing, but she's not my life. And it's important that they're proud of their work, and it seems like they're proud of it, so that's also good. But I found the script a little weak, like very ideologically scattered. Like, I don't think it really knew what it was saying or what it was trying to say. And I think the performances are fun, but fine. Even Ryan Gosling. The songs are not really to my taste, except the Charlie one, but that one's not nominated for anything. It just feels like it's being included because it was so huge and hard to ignore. Like, it was kind of a boon for the film industry, which I understand is very important when it's already like kind of struggling, but like, it feels also sort of like an achievement of marketing. Like, not necessarily just the film. So like, if we're gonna make a box office achievement award, I feel like you could just instead make like a best marketing award. Speaking as the person who works at marketing, I think that those people deserve awards too. So like, I don't know. You could award it for that, and I would have less of a problem with it, frankly. It just seems like we made an award that's like there to give flowers to something that's already taken up like every other bouquet. It's a very weak metaphor, but you know what I mean. That's the Golden Globes. I want to talk about the Grammys, so we're going to talk about the Grammys. I'm sorry if this feels like a detour because it's not really about movies, and technically we're here to talk about the Academy Awards. I just don't care. Like, I think you should bear with me and let me talk about the Grammys because I want to talk about it, because I have a lot of gripes about the Grammys. And my gripes about the Grammys are similar, I think, to how I feel about other award shows, so it still fits. I just genuinely really despise this fucking award show. So, here's a list of my general Grammys issues. Many of the categories make no sense. Here's an example. Progressive R&B versus a regular R&B category, which I guess is good because then more artists get more awards. And this year it was Victoria Monet and SZA, and I think they're both deserving, so that's great. But what makes SZA progressive R&B and Victoria Monet just R&B? Like, that makes no sense to me. And like, my understanding is that like the Academy of Music makes these categories and the labels just submit to whichever one they think their artist will like perform best in. And it's like the same with like alternative versus rock versus pop. Even those are confusing because like, why is Paramore rock and not alternative? And like, why is like an Olivia Rodrigo song in a rock category and not pop? And like, how are both Paramore and rock as well as alternative? Like, it makes no sense to me. It's not tracking. And I did find a good article about this from Alternative Press, which is a magazine I have not read probably since I was 14 years old, but they did a good article that more or less explains the process as like, a label submits on behalf of their artist for a certain genre category, then the committees for those different genres / like disciplines can then place a submission in a different category as determined by like, if, like, let's say somebody submits to alternative, but that group, like whoever's in that committee decides it's actually pop, they can then submit it to the pop group, and it will be like determined by those people. And if there's like disagreements, then a core committee, which is the largest committee, can then decide whether the work goes to one genre category or another. I just think that's really absurd. Like, in theory, like, I understand why this is the current way of doing things, because it's hard sometimes to know where something belongs. And ideally, like, the people voting in those categories know what they're talking about. So, like, maybe I should just trust the process, but it just seems arbitrary. And, like, if it gets more people, more awards, then I guess there's positives. It feels very scattered to me. Very disorganized. And the structure of the show has also never really worked for me. Like, you have a wide range of performances, and it always features only some of the artists that are nominated for Record of the Year, which is a song, and album of the year. And I'm not entirely sure how that's decided. Like, I assume it's a mix of like artist schedules and like who wants to do it and who the, you know, award decider people decide is, you know, the most gonna be the biggest draw for an audience. But I don't know. Sometimes the lineups are just very confusing. So like this year featured Luke Combs, a country artist, with Tracy Chapman doing Fast Car, because he covered Fast Car, and somehow that was nominated for Record of the Year, even though like it's a cover. I don't know how that works. I think Record of the Year has something to do, it's more about the quite literally the recording, and Song of the Year is about the songwriting. So obviously it's not nominated for Song of the Year, but it is nominated for Record of the Year. But I don't know what makes it, like, in terms of the actual recording, so special, because it's pretty mid-cover, if you ask me. It's not as good as Tracy Chapman's version, I'll tell you that. At least Tracy's version was nominated at the time, so whatever. And she's getting paid off of all this, so great. So they performed, which was fine. It was good. Joni Mitchell performed Both Sides Now, which was great. That was a great performance. And typically the Grammys will have like a legacy artist there, and they're like not necessarily there to get an award. They're just there to be admired. And that's kind of good. That's like a good, like, we're throwing people some flowers. That's good. There's always an in memoriam section. So this year Annie Lennox did Nothing Compares to You for Sinead O'Connor, and Fantasia did Proud Mary for Tina Turner, which were both good performances. And then for the nominees, we had SZA, Miley, Billie Eilish, Jon Batiste, although that was technically part of the in memoriam, Dua Lipa, and Olivia Rodrigo. And nothing else. I mean, there were other nominees. It's just nothing else was particularly memorable for me. Like, there was Travis Scott and Billy Joel, and I thought that they were fine. There's always just a lot of, like, fine performances at the Grammys is the thing. Like, you really want it to be, like, a spectacular thing, but I feel like the VMAs were always better for that. I'm thinking, like, big award show performances, and they tend to all be at the VMAs. Like, Lady Gaga, Paparazzi, where she's bleeding all over the place, that was the VMAs. There was a big Kanye performance that I really remember for some reason, where he did Runaway, and he's, like, spinning. That was at the VMAs. Miley's big thing, where she performed with Robin Thicke, was at the VMAs. It outsold the Grammys for me as a kid, and it still does. So, I don't know. And also this year, like, they left out Boy Genius, they left out Lana, they left out Taylor, they left out Janelle Monáe. So, like, I had to imagine those people either turned it down, or, like, they weren't considered for some reason, but that makes no sense to me. And it seems like this year they really wanted to go, like, pop radio music heavy, because that's probably what performs better, I understand. But why not have some other artists perform for the actual awards? I also have a lot to say. I think Record of the Year and Album of the Year categories are very rarely awarded to the people that, quote-unquote, deserve them. You know, not awarded to the best of the bunch, usually even, which is all, like, very political. It's not worth wasting energy on. Like, everyone votes for their friends, and people who campaign the hardest will always win, and that's just how it is. And that's the same for any award show. Like, that's not just the Grammys. But it can be very frustrating when it happens every time, like, every year. Especially when those winners, like, have won before and keep winning. Or when, like, the winner is so clearly, like, leagues below the other nominees. And I do think this was one of those years. So, like, it's not quite as bad as, like one year, 1989, Taylor Swift won over To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar. I think that's insane. That's, like, if I were him, I'd be pissed, you know? Or, like, there was a year where Bruno Mars for 24 Karat Magic took over. Oh, he took home Album of the Year over Lorde, Melodrama, Childish Gambino for Awaken My Love, Kendrick Lamar for Damn, and Jay-Z for 444, which are all better albums. I think about that one a lot. That one drives me nuts. Anyway, but this year was also annoying. So, Flowers, Miley Cyrus won for best, for Record of the Year. I think Flowers is straight up not a good song. The sample's really boring. I think it's a really tired out narrative for Miley. Like, the divorce happened years ago. I think we're all over it collectively. I'm never excited to hear it, and I think a pop song should be something that you're excited to hear. Personal opinion. I personally don't get the love for it. I know a lot of people do like it, but it's not for me. Although I will say, I don't think any of the songs on Record of the Year were like all that good. I love Boy Genius. Don't call me out. I think Not Strong Enough sounds like a Christian pop song that you would hear at like a youth group. And that's just how I feel about that song. I think it's like one of the weakest on the album. And yeah, I don't like What Was I Made For, although I do think it's going to win the Oscar this year. Yeah, I just don't like that kind of ballad. It doesn't work for me. I don't like Vampire for the same reason. I like Antihero. I like Kill Bill. I like On My Mama. I don't think they're amazing songs. I think they're good. But I would have rather one of those three won it, to be fair. Which is kind of like a weird weak year, but I think Flowers was probably the weakest of that category. So, no hate to Miley. I used to be a member of Miley World fan club. I was a card-carrying member of Miley World when I was 10 to 11 years old. So, I think Miley's very talented and hot. So, no hate. Album of the Year obviously went to Midnights. I think we've all heard this by now. And that does feel like a popularity vote because Midnights is like not even a great Taylor record. Like, it's fine. It's got some good songs on it. I think overall the sound of it is not very exciting. It didn't really do anything for me in terms of like advancing my view of Taylor as a songwriter. If anything, I feel like she took a bunch of steps back for Midnights. And it, you know, it's a well-produced record, but it's also nothing different than anything she's done before, even in terms of production. So like, I do understand why it's here, but it's not, it was not my winner, which would have been, Did You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard? Or what was SZA's? Oh, SOS was also very good. So like, that's crazy to me. Award one of the other girls. Taylor even realizes that. Like, she brought Lana on stage and was like, Lana should have this award. I don't know. Okay. But also let's talk about Taylor because like, I felt like she entered like a new era of her career that night in like a bad way. Like, and people have been saying this, like, this is not an original take, but it feels like we're officially in like the overexposure territory for Taylor. And it's like her fault, but it's also, well, no, it is her fault. I'm going to say it's her fault. Like, it's, she's going to have to work really hard at not annoying people from this point on because people are annoyed. Even people that like her. Like, I've talked to fans, people I work with, friends of mine. I would consider myself like a mild Taylor Swift fan, at least her music. I have a lot of gripes with her as a person, but we're not getting into that today. And I think people, even the people that like her, are annoyed. And nobody seems like overwhelmingly excited about this new record. It's very odd to me. It's sort of like when you announce your engagement at somebody else's wedding. Like, it took all the air out of the room. Nobody liked it. You could see other artists got uncomfortable because now it was all about Taylor, and all the people would be talking about the next day is Taylor. And that's just, I think you need to realize as an artist and as a person, like, generally, like, when is a good time for things like that. And I think the Grammys are generally, if you're the biggest pop star in the world, it's kind of a rude thing to do when it's everybody else's moment too. Especially, I think it's a bad sign if your industry and fellow like pop stars, people who are basically more or less like your coworkers, are not excited about what you're doing. She's hitting a point where she may need to disappear for a while. Or at least become more aware of how much time and money she's, like, sucking out of people. And this is, okay, tangent. I've been mad at her for a while because she's clogging vinyl pipelines. Like, her fucking records, because there's all these different pressings, like, clog up the, like, 2 factories that there are for, like, making new vinyl records. So then you get a bunch of indie artists whose, like, shit gets, like, pushed off for months, even though it was promised to fans like a lot earlier. And it's Taylor's fault. And Adele's. It's weird to me. And sometimes it feels like it's not, tangent, it just feels like it's not about the art with her. Like, it's not about the music. And I think that there are ways to be not necessarily about the music and still make interesting stuff. Like, Charlie is like that. She even said in an interview recently that, like, for her, it's not necessarily just about the music. It's about you're creating a world, you're creating a community, blah, blah, blah. But also still make good music. And I feel like sometimes that slips for Taylor out, you know, in favor of, like, continuing this narrative she has with her fans. But that narrative is, like, purely marketing. Like, it's not really based on anything real. She's a billionaire. Like, is any of this I don't know. It feels very calculated. It doesn't work for me. I think it's gross. I think it's a little nasty. And I don't know. I think it's time to stop with the like TikTok aesthetics lingo. Like, okay, Tortured Poets Department is word salad, right? Like, yes, it means something, but like it's just 3 words that have a different vibe when placed side by side. And I think she's 34 years old and could stand to not do that anymore. Like, I feel like, I don't know, she just does this a lot, where like, it's about the vibes, and it's not about like, how good of a song can I write? And she can write a good song. So, I don't know, write a good song. Maybe there's good songs on the record. I don't know. She hasn't dropped a single because she can do that now. So, disappointing stuff to me. Disappointing that that's like what's popular right now, but whatever. Anyway, Song of the Year was What Was I Made For, Billie Eilish, which, as I've stated, I don't really like it. I'm fine with it. I think it's a bit boring for Billie, and I didn't love it in Barbie, but I also just didn't love Barbie, and I don't think the song is necessarily bad. I just think the whole theme of like existential Barbie, what? I'm plastic. What does that mean for me as a person? I just think it's very overwrought and obnoxious. It's like people that you know who have like a CEO position being like, I have imposter syndrome. And it's like, I just don't want to hear about that. Oh my god. Anyway, also A&W is right there. Such a good song, comparatively. However, Best New Artist going to Victoria Monet. That does make sense to me. I think that was a really good choice. I like her. She's been coming up for years. She's been writing songs for other artists, grinding. And I really appreciate a story like that. I appreciate who she is. I think that's good. I think that's a good thing that happened. Producer of the Year I'm also fine with. It went to Jack Antonoff. I do think he's doing a good job generally. I understand complaints about Jack Antonoff and how all of his stuff sounds the same and how he makes all of the artists he works with sound the same. That's what a producer does. I just think he's very oversaturated in the market. Like, he's touching every major pop record, and I just don't think we should be doing that. But whatever. I think Daniel Nigro, I think is how you say his name, would have been like a cool, like, out of left field pick. He did Welcome to My Island, Caroline Polachek, works with Chappell Roan, and Olivia Rodrigo. I just think he makes fun pop music that like doesn't really sound like anything else right now, so it would have been cool, but I also don't think he really had a chance against Jack, so I'm not going to complain too much. And this category, I will say, also reminds me of that one Grimes tweet where she was like, I tried to nominate Sophie and they wouldn't let me, and that makes me so mad. Just because I like Sophie, and I think that she deserved to be awarded like that in her lifetime. And it didn't happen. And Grimes really did try to make it happen, so shout out Grimes. But it's very shitty. And like basically what she said is like she couldn't because they make you stick to a list of pre-approved producers that the core committee gives you. And like the core committee is not necessarily made up of producers. So what are we doing? Let the producers nominate the producers. It seems very like anti-innovation to me. And that is the Grammys not about that? I don't understand. People that could have been nominated this year, like Danielle Harl, Sega Bodega, JPEG Mafia, A.G. Cook, like doing great work, objectively great, very creative, very innovative producers, but they'll never be nominated for something like this. Like, they just won't. And that sucks because they're like underground. Even though like Danielle Harl worked on Desire I Want to Turn Into You, and that was nominated for Best Engineering, which is, it's not the same thing as producing, but it's like, he was there for that. He's nominated for Best Engineering as well. Sometimes it doesn't feel about the craft, you know? I'm getting very worked up right now. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm skipping over pop because I just don't find those categories that interesting. Flowers and Midnights also took home those awards. Aphex Twin lost. That was for Dance Album, which is in the pop category, technically. Kylie Minogue got some awards for Potom Potom. SZA and Phoebe Bridgers got an award for Ghost in the Machine, which is a great song. So, happy about that. And I don't think any of that was too unexpected. Rock and Alternative I kind of want to talk about, I guess, just because, I don't know. I feel like these are going to be kind of unexpected takes for me, but It was pretty much dominated by Boy Genius and Paramore. And I think if you told me like 5 years ago that in 5 years, Paramore and Phoebe Bridgers, or even like Lucy Dacus, which is like still crazy to me, would be walking away with Grammy Awards, multiple, in one night, I think I would have assumed we'd be living in a universe that's like tailored to my taste and my life. But that's not where we're at. And I'm actually not as thrilled about all of this as I feel like I should be. And not because I think that any of the other acts here are like particularly better. Like I guess I don't. I just don't think either album is like a high point in their careers, which a lot of people disagree with me about for Paramore specifically. I think people are generally in agreement that Boy Genius is like not as great of a project as like the girls/boys solo. I'm glad they have Grammys now. So I will say I think the best alternative music category, or best alternative music performance award, I don't know. I do think This Is Why is the weakest song in that category. Like, to whenever A&W again, to have A&W nominated twice and it loses twice is insane. That's like maybe Lana's, it's a top 5 for me in her discography. It's great. Kind of makes me think that the average Academy voter just doesn't like Lana, which is really sad. But the best alternative music performance category, it had like Always and like shit, I don't know, some other stuff. If This Is Why is like not a great Paramore song to me. Anthony Fantano would disagree. But yeah, that was that. And it kind of weirds me out that I'm disappointed about all that, but that's where we're at. I didn't love either of those records as much as I wanted to. So for hip-hop, I think the Killer Mike sweep makes sense. I think everybody has come to like a basic consensus that hip-hop had kind of a weak year last year, but I did hear good things about the Killer Mike record. I think it would have been cool to see Doja or Lil Uzi take home something, but I'm not going to complain that they didn't. And also, the people who vote for these things don't care for that kind of music, and that's how it is. I do think it's crazy that whatever is going on at the Grammys, whoever's organizing this allowed Killer Mike to get arrested after he got his awards. It feels like either like a calculated stunt on behalf of the Grammys or on behalf of LAPD, which is even grosser. Maybe it's a publicity stunt for Killer Mike. Not the movie recording is stopped automatically. Because I can respect that kind of PR grift. But I also kind of don't think that's what happened, because he did actually get charged for a misdemeanor. So apparently it was about some sort of altercation with a security guard. I don't know. I don't care. Sometimes I think if you're a security guard, you just need to let it go. If it's an artist at an award show and people have probably already been drinking, I don't know. Just like, don't let your artist get arrested at the award show you're throwing. I feel like that's like basic stuff, especially if it's over a misdemeanor. So I think it's a bad look. Moving on to the film adjacent Grammy wins, so we can bring this back to what this is actually about. Barbie the album took home Best Soundtrack. What Was I Made For is Best Song Written for Visual Media. Oppenheimer took home Best Score, which also kind of tends to signal wins for the Oscars. And I think Billy taking home the Oscar for What Was I... Oh my god, I keep like almost burping. That's horrible. Yeah, Billy's taking home Best Original Song. I think that's like easy, like a given. And I can kind of see this as being like a decent predictor for Oppenheimer too, taking home Best Score. I think that's probably deserved anyway. General take on a good score is like, if you can remember not necessarily like a singular like motif or like moment in the score, like it doesn't have to be like a Pirates of the Caribbean moment where like you know it off the top of your head. If you can remember the essence of the score and like you think about the movie and you're like, yes, I can feel what that music felt like in my head, in my bones, it's a good score. And I do feel that way about Oppenheimer. Like, I can't remember any specific moments in the score, but I do know how it made me feel in the moment, and I remember it in that way. Like a very abstract kind of remembering. Anyway, I think that makes it a good score. That's my rule. So, agree with that or don't. I don't feel qualified to speak on any of the other genres for the Grammys, so I'm just going to say overall, for the music I listen to, disappointing year. And I think, you know, I don't know. Last year, 2023, was kind of a disappointing year for music overall. I've said this before. I have like a Substack essay about it. Go read it, whatever, blah. My most listened to songs on Spotify Wrapped tend to be from the year previous because I go in like very strong cycles with new music. And last year I noticed that of my Spotify Wrapped, only 2 songs were new. And they were Speed Drive, so I guess shout out Barbie for one thing, and the Welcome to My Island, Charlie XCX, and George Daniel remix. And that's it. Those are my only new songs on my top 5. And you know, I had things from last year that I liked, but they're also like not gonna be at the Grammys. Like, is there gonna be a Grammy Award for Scaring the Hoes by JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown? I don't think so. Maybe I'm just not the audience for this, and that's okay. Final statement on the Grammys. It's not about the art. They hate to see a quirked up bitch winning. Okay, and also like, especially black women, like, why has Beyonce never won for Best Album? That's fucking insane. So that's that. Very annoying. I need to stop watching it every year. Yeah. That's my take on the Grammys. So anyway, that moves us on to the Oscars, finally. And why, you might be asking yourself at this point, am I so interested in talking about award shows if I hate them so much? And it's because of the Oscars. Because I actually don't hate the Oscars. And I genuinely, as a kid, loved the Oscars. Like, especially in, like, middle school, early high school, where I was really getting into movies. And, like, I realized that it was, like, it was a little deeper for me than it is for other people. I think if the moment is right, like, I can really get down with, like, the essence of what the Oscars is supposed to be. When it's done right, it is a celebration of everything good in movies. And I love watching a good speech. I love seeing people get emotional about it. It makes me very emotional as well. I love to celebrate somebody else's success when it comes to being really good at something and, like, putting hard work into something. And that is something that the Oscars does, like, give us. And, like, also at its best, and this is, not everybody's taste, I think it can be, like, very old-fashioned and sort of, like, in an old Hollywood sort of way. Like, that mode of thinking about the movies is like, we're going to the pictures today. Like, I don't know, there's just this sort of element toward, like, looking at current movies. I don't know, there's sort of a glamour to it that is not necessarily present in the rest of our lives. Like, if this is the only thing keeping up any sense of glamour in the American film industry, I'll take it. That's fine. There's negatives. Like, it's the same thing as the Grammys. Like, I think it's been hard recently to root for the Oscars because so much of what wins just isn't actually the best of what's out there. And, like, it does get better in terms of nominations. Like, this year, I feel like the best films, at least in English, usually tend to get nominated. But yeah, because I'm planning on having an episode out on the morning of the Oscars, I want to go through the predictions about who's gonna win tonight. And I'll just say, I have a film degree. I've been analyzing the Oscars since I was like 12 years old, and I tend to be right. I was right last year, and I think I'm going to be right again this year. So I'm throwing it out there that if I'm not right, sorry, but I'm going to be right. I'm pretty positive I'm going to be right. Just going to go category by category and give you who I think is winning tonight. First off, actor in a leading role. It's Cillian Murphy. I think that's very obvious. Golden Globes rule, it's Cillian. Obviously, I would like to see stuff when it's not a biopic, but this is where we're at. It's Cillian Murphy, it's fine. Actor in a supporting role, I think we'll go to Robert Downey Jr. He's never received an Oscar. I think we're going to do a Jamie Lee Curtis situation where you get nominated for something that's fine, and you're going to get it because people like you and they want to see you get an award. Ideal world, I think it's De Niro, but I don't think we live in an ideal world, so. And I like Ryan Gosling. I don't think this is a time that he's gonna win. I know some people think that that's like gonna be like a funny thing that happens like out of left field. I just don't see it actually happening. It just never happens with comedies. I don't know, unless it's Moonstruck and Cher wins, but that's a very good movie. So also it should be going to Charles Melton, who's not here for some reason. Fix that someday. Actress in a leading role I think is going to Emma Stone. Golden Globes rule again. But there is a non-zero chance that it's Lily Gladstone as well. And I think either of those are equally deserving. Although I want to shout out that Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore should be here. And May December getting locked out of all of this is bonkers bananas to me. Oh, it makes me so mad. Actress in a supporting role is a toss-up for me because I haven't seen as many of these films. But my money is on Jodie Foster for the same reason as Robert Downey Jr. or Danielle Brooks for like more legitimate good performance reasons. I don't think it'll be Emily Blunt because I think her performance as Kitty is like fine. It's not mind-blowing. I don't think about it very often, but I wouldn't be mad about it because I think it was good. Animated feature film, I think will be Boy and the Heron because it also won Best Animated at Golden Globes. Tends to be how it goes, but Spider-Man has a strong shot, so we'll see. I do think it would be nice to see it go to Miyazaki because he's in the end stages of his career, and it would just be a nice thing. And it was a good movie. I liked it, so. Cinematography is a tough call because I don't totally know what I'm talking about. I did not study cinematography, but I would love to see it go to Poor Things. I can see strong arguments for Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon. More likely Oppenheimer of those two. Poor Things or Oppenheimer. That's my guess. Costume design, I think Barbie or Poor Things probably have it in the bag. I'm personally rooting for Poor Things. I think all of Emma Stone's outfits as Becca Baxter. Very fun, very silly, very suited to who Becca is as a character, and also sort of took from like what is currently popular in, you know, like couture, high fashion. I just think it's great. I think it's a very good mix of like suitable, but also of the moment. You know, and I think really good costume design can pull that off and make you want the outfit, but also acknowledge that you're not the person it was made for. Poor Things, I think, is who should get it, but I think it'll probably go to Barbie, unfortunately. We don't live in a just world. I stopped with notes there, but I have all of the categories pulled up, so I'm gonna keep going on my laptop. Directing, I think, yeah, it's Scorsese. I think Scorsese's getting one this year. That's my guess. And it would be very well deserved. So I really want to see him get it. Documentary feature film. I have not seen any of these. I am not an expert on documentaries at all, so I'm skipping those. Sorry. Film editing. Maybe Oppenheimer? I'm trying to think like in terms of... I feel like, yeah, maybe Oppenheimer. Because it does a lot of like back and forth, and that's very much reliant on the edit. What? This is another thing where it's like, I just don't think about it. So, probably Oppenheimer, though. International feature film. Probably, Zone of Interest, because it's already nominated for Best Picture, so it's going to Zone of Interest. Also, crazy that international feature film can feature English films. Oh, that's right. They changed foreign film to international feature film. But yeah, it features English language films. It's like you already get the nominations. I don't know. Let the real non-English speakers have a moment. UK. Makeup and hairstyling. I hate to say it, maybe Maestro. Even though that's a bit absurd. Music. Oh, you know what? Going back to makeup and hairstyling, I haven't seen Golda. What is Golda? I see. It's for aging makeup. That's so obvious. It's gotta be Maestro, because it's a period thing and they made him look like the guy. That makes sense to me. Okay, music. Oh yeah, I already said Oppenheimer. I'm standing by that. I believe in that. Although I think the Poor Things score rocks. Probably better for me. That's actually a tough call. It's probably Oppenheimer. Sorry, Poor Things. I love it though. Original song. Oh my god, The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot. I did not realize that was here. I did not see Flamin' Hot. I don't support corporate propaganda, just so we're clear. It's gonna be Billie Eilish. Best Picture, I already said. I think it's gonna be Oppenheimer, Poor Things, or Killers of the Flower Moon. Money would be on Oppenheimer, though. Production design, Barbie. I think it has to be Barbie. Poor Things would be great, but I think it's gonna be Barbie. Short films I'm skipping. I haven't seen any of them. Sound, I think it's gonna go to Oppenheimer. The bomb scene, I don't know, it scared me. I felt it in my bones, so. Visual effects, I mean, maybe Napoleon or Guardians of the Galaxy. I haven't seen the Godzilla, but that could also make sense. Probably the Marvel thing. I don't know. Tends to happen. Okay, writing. Adapted screenplay. This is my bag. I think for adapted screenplay, it's going to be Oppenheimer. Yeah, it's probably going to be Oppenheimer. Because it pulls off the switches in time well. I didn't feel like any dialogue didn't make sense. You know, I've seen some of the Oppenheimer script, and I like that it was written in first person. I find that very interesting. I would like to see stuff like that win more often, because I don't think everything needs to necessarily be, like, to the format, you know? Like, a screenplay can also be a work of art. I'm just going to stand by that. I think Oppenheimer should get it. Original screenplay. Oh, it needs to be May December. It needs one win. And May December is amazing. It's so good. That was maybe my favorite film last year. I've been telling people it's Poor Things, but it's a close tie. They're both so good. Yeah, and I like that May December, it interrogates, like, what a biopic is, you know? Like, that's obviously the whole point of it. So I'm a little worried that it's gonna lose because people are gonna be mad about it. But it's so smart, and it's so goofy. And I have also seen some bits and bobs from that screenplay. And, like, the goofiness is baked in. And it comes off in the movie, but, like, I'm not being very articulate. I think May December rocks, and I think it deserves. So those are all of our categories. Hopefully I'm right. And those would all be things I'm not mad about. This is a year where I'm choosing not to be mad, unlike how I was mad at the Grammys. So thanks for listening to me rant about all of this. Wrapping up by saying, I think if you're going to go see all these movies, which I think you should, that you enjoy your experience, and follow me on Letterboxd, not Mackenzie. I'll put that in the bio of this. Link in bio? That's not the right. Link in the description. Usually I do recommendations. Music, I'm gonna say today, just go listen to Von Dutch. That's all I've been listening to. I've been listening to Slut Pot Miami a little bit too, Kim Petras, but I also still feel really weird about supporting Kim Petras. I don't know. I like her music. I don't like that she works with Dr. Luke, so fraught situation there. Unfortunately, I can't give up a bop, so blah, blah, blah. Movies. Have I watched any good movies recently? I think I did. What have I watched? I did go see Amelie on Valentine's Day. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I think it is. I went and saw Amelie in theaters on Valentine's Day because it's been making the rounds in theaters again. Amazing movie. Like, maybe the best rom-com besides, like, When Harry Met Sally, you know? I just think it's really cool that there's a movie about someone who is so weird and shy, and she needs to find another weird and shy guy, so she plays mind games with him until he, like, is obsessed with her. It's very funny. It's very funny. And it's very unlike any other movie. So, recommend Amelie. Haven't been watching much TV. Oh, How To with John Wilson I've been watching. Really enjoy that. Very calming. Very contemplative. But funny. Great show if you have HBO. And books. I just finished a book that I finished 2 books I really liked. I really liked Just Kids, Patti Smith. I went and saw the Robert Mapplethorpe exhibition at the Guggenheim in 2019. And it is the most, I think I've ever responded physically to photography in person. So I really do appreciate him, even though I felt very upset by a lot of it. And so it was interesting getting some insight, I guess, into their relationship and, like, how they make work. I find it very inspiring, I guess, in a way. Because I myself am a writer, believe it or not. So I felt like I could relate to Patty on a lot of things. Yeah. I don't know how true a lot of it is. It feels like it could be, you know, embellished a bit, but I'm going to choose to believe, you know. And the power of friendship is very much a real thing. And I found the ending of the book very devastating because I had also just lost someone. So really recommend Just Kids. I think it's a great book. And I finished, I finished Ernest Hemingway. What was the one that I read? Wow, I'm like cooked tonight. I'm so tired. I'm like not even thinking. Oh yeah, The Sun Also Rises. Yeah, finished The Sun Also Rises. Actually really enjoyed that. I really do like Hemingway's writing style. I find, you know, very plain spoken, short sentences compelling. That is a writing style that I do enjoy. And I like that it feels like we're sort of, I don't know. Obviously we didn't live through war, but I think there's a lot of parallels between the lost generation and, like, you know, Gen Z millennials. So I can see a lot of it in my day-to-day real life. I found it weirdly relatable and sort of zeitgeisty even for our moment, which is interesting to think about. But yeah, I want to read more Ernest Hemingway. I do have a short story collection of his that I want to pick up. I started reading Tender as the Flesh, and I do not like that. Not because it's gross. Yeah, it's gross. I think it's very, I think it's stupid. So I might not finish that. That's where we're at with life. I'm so tired, I'm going to go to bed. But you have a great night, or day. It's a night for me. But, yeah. Watch the Oscars and we'll see who won. But I'm going to be right. So, have fun with that. All right. Follow me on everything. Check out the bio for links to things. And bye.